and they have to help free like people who have been sort of enslaved by this like sugar magnate or whatever. And it's disconnected, and I feel purposefully so disconnected from the story of race and enslavement and Jim Crow and subjugation in America, right? It only can take place in the other place. And I talk about that in the section, of course, that I cut out, but you know, it's absolutely fascinating the parts of the story that get told. And I just, you know, and you can see the same things that we're to, like, you know, you read like Uncle Tom's Cabin, you know that she's only telling part of the story. You read Huck Finn, and you're like, you're leaving some important things out of this. And the same thing happened to me while I was playing this video game, though I love it very much. And I think that, you know, there are articles saying that this video game was like, you know, the newest version of equality, right? And I was like, it's what? And so we need to change this, like the conversation around like equality, like just like throwing down 3 dark-skinned characters as a part of the gang, you know, one Latinx person and like, you know, a bunch of indigenous people that are treated very poorly does not make your game egalitarian, right? Like the whole context of how these people move through time and space in America is left out. Like they are literally rendered illegible. And that's a big problem to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say,
Oh.
Dr. Hamilton, first of all, thank you again for your amazing research. And I think it's timely for a couple different reasons. One, you know, the new PS5 and Xbox are about to come out. Everybody's putting in their down payment. I can't afford it, but that's okay. But also, you know, with things that are happening right now and just the unrest that we have as people and primarily people of color right now. And so what I really appreciate about what you've shared is, one, just also decolonizing what we look at as research, right? And I think for many people of color, you think about what type of fields and things we may be interested in. Sometimes we don't think that we can just literally research what we're interested in. So the fact that you've done this work around video games, I think and hope will resonate with a lot of our students about thinking about what type of conversations and concepts do they want to focus on that are not just always your same, you know, math, science type of theoretical value. So I really appreciate you sharing with us today. Are there any more questions from the audience or any of our students who are in the other room?
If there's not, there's a question in the chat from Professor Melstein.
Yes. I was just asking about representations of Blackness among the kind of villains in these games, and then also how they handle kind of racial ambiguity, and if they use, you know, something that I noticed with dolls, for example, that they often have white dolls and then the like vaguely ethnic doll that is supposed to stand in for any kind of non-whiteness, as a way of like signaling diversity in some way, and whether or not you see that kind of really kind of basic representation in the games as well.
Yeah, there's another favorite game of mine. It's Uncharted Lost Legacies. And so Uncharted was apparently a very big series, but I got Uncharted 4 when I bought my PS4. Yeah, I lose track. I've had all the PSs, so I'm like, which one was it? And so there were these 2 female characters. They both had like relationships with the main protagonist, Nathan Drake. And one, I think she's like biracial, and I think the other woman is like some version of some ethnic identity, you know, and those 2 characters got their own game, which of course was shorter and not as well formed as the one about the white man, but we're gonna let that go. They got the game, we're happy. And so I think that is the case, right? Where what's happening is that, you know, video game developers are like, let me try to check all the boxes at one time with one person. And that of course has its own problems because, you know, that person does not get the full, like, we don't get a full story about them. Where are they from, right? Who are they? What's their parentage? How did they meet this person? We don't get that. We often do not get those stories. And so that's becoming another problem. In terms of villains, I mean, it just depends on the game. I'm trying to think. I mean, the villain in Red Dead 2 was like a bunch of white dudes, I think. I mean, they had, so, you know, the game is about outlaws. So I feel like the gang is the villain in a lot of this stuff, especially the leader of the gang, who is a white man. He's pretty trash. And he also is like manipulating a group of indigenous people to fight, so to sort of distract the American government, the people that he's stolen from him, which I think is, of course, horrific. And in terms, you had a question too about, did you ask about gender, Mel? No, somebody did. There is one character in Red Dead 2 who does not fit the sort of general female stereotypes that we usually get in media. We meet her, she is rescued by the gang after another gang has kind of set her house on fire and killed her husband. And so the Vanderling gang takes her in. And she ends up being like, you know, a bounty hunter. She's the one that tries to save the day when things start going awry. She's smart. She's a little out of control. But she's like the one character who, you know, I say breaks some gender norms. But she shouldn't be the only one. There are all kinds of women in the West, right? But again, that's not they were like, okay, here we go. We got to have one woman be the one, right? All the other women are love interests who are flat, or girls in the gang who, you know, steal from men. They like date men to try to steal their money, you know? So it's like that. And I'm just like, nah. But yeah. Somebody say yes, Scammy. Thanks, Dr. Halliday. Any other questions?
Are we all out of questions? I can't believe it. I think we're just all kind of, you know, meditating on what you said. I don't want to say stunned, but taking an intellectual adventure and journey into the world that you just presented, and the possibilities for critical race theory and cultural analysis along the lines of intersectionality, and the impact that it's having on the collective cultural climate and the American cultural climate that we all indulge in, or the global climate, really the global climate. So thank you so much, Dr. Hamilton. I think we are all transformed by that lecture. Jamal, are there any students with questions? Do any of them have any questions? Any players, Mr. McDaniel? I'd love to hear from others that play.
I don't have I was telling the students earlier that I don't have like any of the I guess the Switch is popular, but I don't have like the PS4 and Xbox, and I've never really been in the games that are more on the I guess the athletic side or the Grand Theft Autos and things. So it's never really been a concern, but I think Dr. Hamilton's talk really has me thinking more about how representation, when we talk about it, matters. It also matters in the video game standpoint, and how, like, even from thinking from a child, what messages you can get from playing your handheld device. And it's funny because I'm thinking, like, when the Game Boy was serious back in the day, I mean, you didn't have color, right? So you couldn't ascribe a certain connotation or race to figures. But now that technology is so big, it's a little bit more visual, right? So then it makes sense why we probably need to question what type of messages are coming out of the games that we're playing. But yeah, I set out to say it's really interesting, and it's having me think about wanting to go back and look at some of the games that are more popular and really think about like what does representation look like. So
Yeah, I
I
thought
mean,
it was
especially,
awesome. Go
like,
ahead, Regina. Sorry.
I just saying, especially as like virtual reality is becoming more popular, like people are putting a lot of time, energy, and money into replicating the things that we see, feel, right? All of our sensory information. But I just think we have to keep an eye on them replicating like the things that we think about each other, the hierarchies that are in place in our society as well. And so do we want some of these things to be replicated? I think we really do not, right? And so just keep an eye on that when you're playing video games later. I mean, I will be. I play Pokemon Go every day, so. Jamal, you play Pokemon Go too, don't you? Yeah, you do.
I have partaken in that game. I will not front. All right,
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Hamilton. Do you have any announcements you'd like to make on the behalf of the MLK Center, Mr. McDaniel?
Yes, we have a couple different of events coming up this week and next. So on Thursday, actually, we have our first Latinx Heritage Month program, which will be discussing what is Latinx, the identity, and all how it comes to be. So we'll have Dr. Cristobal Salinas from FAU, who will be presenting at 11 a.m. So that opportunity is open for any students, faculty, and staff. And then next week, we also have two events. First is on the 29th, we have Alelia Bundles coming, and she is the great-granddaughter of actually Madam C.J. Walker, but she is created her own journey, and she's the author of Self-Made, which turned into the Netflix series that came out this summer. So she's going to be connecting with campus virtually next Tuesday from 6 to 7:30. So if you're interested in that information, feel free to go on our the Gatton website, and they'll have information there. And then lastly, we will have a conversation on critical race theory, what it is, and how it kind of can shape some of the things that are happening right now in society. So that will be on the 30th at noon. So a lot of different opportunities coming up. So feel free to stay connected. If anybody wants to get on our listserv, feel free to email me or email Dr. Hill, and she can forward the email.
Correct. We're also going to have two other installments of the Carter G. Woodson series this semester, which is the partnership between AAS and the MLK Center, and they will happen in October with Kamara Ewing, and in November with Dr. Shauna Morgan. So we're Morgan parenthesis Walker. And so we're excited to have these lectures, and hopefully Dr. Morgan will also give us a poetry reading. That's me being selfish and greedy for that. And it'll be a great time for us to get to know our colleagues better and to explore the research hub of the university in this way. So thanks everybody for joining, and I think we're gonna log out now. Thanks so much, Dr. Hamilton. Brilliant.
Thank you guys.
Brilliant
Thanks for
work.
having me. Thank everybody. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Great job.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming, Jackie.
No problem. It was great. We gotta talk. Actually, I gotta get a list of bibliography from you. So
Okay.
I'll email you.
All right.
All right. Cool.
Thanks for coming, Hannah. You too, Kegel.
And Damaris, I don't know how I did it. I think I accidentally had pressed record in the midst of it, and you had already had a recording. So I'll just take whatever recording you get if you get one for today's event. And it still says record if you want to stop it.
Yeah.